Welcome back, vinyl community, to another edition of Doodah Dave's Record Reviews. So tonight we have an interesting album, 1979, hence my t-shirt. I did not have a Talking Heads t-shirt, I am sad to say. I do have the album though. It is Fear of Music by the Talking Heads, 1979's classic. Their second album with producer Brian Eno, who had produced Roxy Music and Ultravox and worked with Robert Fripp. In fact, he brought Robert Fripp in for the first song on the album, E Zimbra, which was a pioneering work of African type rhythms, polyrhythms, not more punk than disco, a world music that in 1979, it's hard for people to imagine after Graceland in the 80s and Peter Gabriel's work and Sting's work, where world music was. But world music was really being pioneered by David Byrne and the Talking Heads. So let's back up a little. Talking Heads came out of Rhode Island School of Design. Everybody knows that. David Byrne dropped out, picked up the rhythm section of Tina Weymouth on bass, a female bass player, very cool. We hadn't really seen that. Oh, and I just wanted to say we're working back through the alphabet with the record reviews. We started with Warren Zevon in Los Angeles, a great musical town. Then we veered to London for Yes and The Who, and now we've brought back to another fantastic musical town, New York. And I will say the Talking Heads are probably right up there with my favorite New York bands. I mean, on the same par with Paul Simon and his partner Art Garfunkel and Lou Reed for Kings of the New York Sound. I like the Ramones too, but I put the others up there. Velvet Underground and Simon and Garfunkel being so pioneering. And we can probably think of some other New York bands. But as far as New York bands go, in my estimation, Talking Heads are number one. So this is their third outing after Talking Heads 77 had Psycho Killer, more songs about buildings and food in 78. They broke out with they did an Al Green cover on there, one of my favorite songs. I want to talk about that a second now. Take Me to the River, which is really a gospel-oriented Al Green coming out of Memphis, soul singer, and then later turned more heavily into gospel. But that song, I mean, it is a magical song. The Talking Heads did a great cover of it. Annie Lennox did a great cover of it. And if you can find it, there's a Bob Weir, Charlie Musselwhite cover of it that he did for a benefit album. It's just magical, magical song. And of course, the original by Al. So back to Talking Heads. They had big success. They were on American Bandstand. They broke out with the Al Green cover single, the only cover that I know of in all of their albums. All the other stuff was written pretty much by Byrne and collaborated with the other ones. Tina Weymouth on bass, it was going to introduce the band. Jerry Harrison on the great keyboards. Now he came from Jonathan Richman's Modern Lovers, and who am I missing? Chris France on the drums, on the terrific rhythm section. And they were a husband and wife rhythm section that locked it down pretty good. So let's talk a little bit about the music. Brian Eno being brought in out of the three albums. Now, a lot of people consider Remain in Light, the next album, to be their masterpiece. And it is a masterpiece, but I love the gritty rawness of this album. The work with Eno. Eno becomes, instead of the fifth Beatle, the George Harrison, the fifth Talking Heads on this. Robert Fripp from King Crimson doing the guitar work on E Zimbra. It has the big hit, Life During Wartime. This ain't no party, this ain't no disco, this ain't no fooling around. Great, great song. Very dystopian, which kind of sets the mood. And then there's a lot of single word, air, drugs, electric guitar, animals, songs that all piece together. For me, I don't know how other people feel this, it's sort of a concept album in a way. The cover is great. It has this, if you can see, this texture that where it's raised, and it's like an industrial flooring. The album was recorded, as I mentioned, in 1979 by the Heads, and they used mobile trucks outside of Chris and Tina's loft where they used to rehearse, and they ran the cables in. So it gave it a very interesting sound. They also jammed a lot of these songs rather than Byrne and Harrison writing them and then bringing them into the band. They were jammed with ideas and layered, very layered, and that comes through. It's very raw. It's very layered. Actually, for sort of punk new wave, it has much of the same immediacy and intimacy that Working Man's Dead and American Beauty have, and they also were created under times of duress and stress in the band, and they were all put together. They were trying to imitate a lot of Crosby's and Stills, Nash harmonies on those albums, and the songwriting is superb with Robert Hunter. I won't go off in Grateful Dead because I can go off on that quite a bit. Interesting, Grateful Dead, Talking Head. A lot of this music is cerebral. A lot of this music is psychedelic, I would say. It's danceable. The lyrics are fantastic. Byrne writes just amazing lyrics. I mentioned Life During Wartime, This Ain't No Party, This Ain't No Disco. Memories Can't Wait. The other big hit from the album, besides Zimbra, was Heaven. Heaven is a place where nothing ever happens. I mean, it was almost like a playwright. It's almost like a Tom Stoppard, David Mamet, Harold Pinter. I want to say a shout out to my son Dylan. He did a really, really great job tonight for his audition for the upcoming musical, and I really wish him the best, and break a leg, buddy. So much love to you. You really, really knocked out of the park. He did Applegate, who is from Damn Yankees. Those were the good old days. So, Talking Heads, these really were the good old days. This was before Stop Making Sense, the Jonathan Demme film that really propelled them to the world stage and world stardom. It was before Once in a Lifetime and the big hits from Remain in Light, as I mentioned, which was the third Eno album. But it was raw and gritty. It had hits, it had texture, it had jamming, and we really hadn't heard stuff like that. I mean, the new wave, if you remember at that point, you had Blondie, you had Elvis Costello, you had Linda Ronstadt trying to do her thing, you had the Pretenders, but there was nobody in New York. I mean, there were Ramones, of course, but that was more proto-punk. You had My Wonderful Clash that I have the shirt on for in England, but nobody was kind of doing art rock the way Talking Heads was. I mean, maybe the closest would be Roxy Music, and hence the Brian Eno connection. So what else can I tell you about Fear of Music? Very interesting title. I was doing a little research about it. I'll get to the research. Yeah, let me say that point. That if you put Fear of Music in front of the title, Fear of Air, Fear of Animals, Fear of Drugs, Fear of Electric Guitar, it works pretty well with all the songs on the album. The other thing, it was mastered at Sterling Sound by Greg Calby. So I believe this is a first pressing. It's on Sire Records, which did a lot of the new wave and punk bands. And I said it was recorded at Chris and Tina's loft. And you get, let me show you I showed you the album and the cool green lettering of the cover and the texture. So this is the inside liner sheet. This was a heat sensitive photograph. I think that's of David Byrne, but I'm not sure, but it was heat sensitive. And then you've got all the lyrics printed on the back. And that was the great thing about records, which they haven't done as much with CDs, and now streaming has totally been lost. Not only the artwork and the presentation, and again, the texture. Like, I have not seen too many CDs that have texture. Once in a while, they'll put those outside cases on the boxes, but they're basically plastic jewel cases. But the lyrics, lyrics and artwork and how they were laid out and designed. Now this is just, as you can see, a gray piece of paper with the lyrics typed out. But it's very stylized. The album is very stylized, and holds together, as I said, as a concept album. I mean, it's not a Sgt. Pepper, but there is a concept: the air, electric guitar, heaven, drugs, cities, which is one of my favorite songs. Let me read you one line, and this is typical of David Byrne, the way he catches irony. And then I'll mention a couple times I saw David Byrne. I was not able to see the Talking Heads live, but I did see David Byrne a couple times with Sandy, and we really loved him. Once at Tarrytown Music Hall and once at Carnegie Hall. Did I forgot to mention Memphis, home of Elvis and the ancient Greeks. Do I smell? I smell home cooking. It's only the river. It's only the river. So the way he just takes you there and leaves you and take me to the river. Interesting. He put Memphis here, which is where I believe Al Green is from, and Stax River, and where a lot of the music that we all love came from, the South, and the soul, and Fame Studios, which was actually in Alabama, next door Memphis. The Opry, Sun Studios, of course, was in Memphis. I would love to take a trip down there, so hopefully I can take you guys with me if I do make it down to the Delta and to the home of the blues. So that's it, wrapping up. Now, I missed U and V. I did not have any records with U or V, so I went right to T. So next week will be S. So we've got a lot of S's to pick from. And I'll let you know what that is next week. We'll see you there. Have a great week out there. Thank you for tuning in to Dave's Record Reviews.